Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We are working on this Gottlieb Spirit of 76 pinball machine that we got off of a customer. They brought it in wanting us to repair it for them. So it's not for sale, we're just fixing it for them. And we did a couple videos on it already. We did one where we kind of just looked it over and got it to come on and flip a little bit. And then we did one where we repainted the playfield and restored it. Well, I hate the word restored, but refurbished it, got it much more presentable. So if you didn't see those videos, go back and check it out. The playfield in particular was in really bad shape, but it's in decent shape now. So we're kind of proud of that. But the problem that we have is the thing is not working properly yet. So on the first video, we did some mechanical work on the mech board underneath it. I'm going to start it up and kind of show you what it does, and then we're going to work in the back box today. This one has a specific problem that I have never seen before on these. So I'll show you that here in a second. So it's just been sitting forever, it appears. I'm going to try to start it and see if anything happens. All right. So that was not the proper reset sequence. So I think it's up and playing. So it's playing right now, but it didn't reset any of the scores, which usually it shouldn't be able to start if it didn't reset the scores. It is stuck on ball and play number 1 and a one-player game. Let's see if we can start more than a one-player game. So that just reset it again, even though it didn't reset the scores. See the 1 down at the bottom there? 2, 3, 4. So it will let us start a 4-player, but won't let us start the next one. So let's score something. It didn't score, but okay. So we are still on player 1. And we are still on ball 1, no matter what we do, right? The reason for this is the player unit in the back box is all jacked up. So we need to check that out. Let me slide this out from the wall and I'll show you the problem. So if you're not familiar with these, I'll just go over it real quick how it works or what's going on. These are connectors from the bottom. You can unplug these. The game's turned off now. You can unplug these to take the head off. Okay, this is the credit assembly where it keeps track of how many credits are on it. These are all of the score reels. There's 4 for each player. And then you have the, I think this is the 100-point reel, or maybe the 10. Yeah, 10, 100, 1,000. And then these two are the score reset relays. So these are not pulling in, that's why the scores aren't resetting. And then this is a match unit. It just has a little thing that moves around so you can win a free game. The entire player setup basically is controlled by this unit. This is the player unit. So there is only one coil on the player unit. And this should pull in and advance this piece here. There's also a cam that should turn when this pulls in. That should move. And when it moves, the cam will close and open different switches here. You see all these switches stacked on top of it. There's like, I don't know, maybe 24 sets of switches there. So this thing, the problem that I've never seen before is this thing is just locked slap up. It won't even try to turn. And of course I'm not trying to force it, but it's just stuck. I'm afraid maybe there's something broken there, but we're about to find out. So if I take this screw loose and move this little spring thing, this will just fold down. I think, oh, nope, I got a screw here too. But yeah, it'll fold down here. That's a pivot. So I'm just going to fold this down, and we may see a horror show on the other side, or it may just be stuck up because it's all jammed up. But the way this works is it's at position ball 1 See the little pins, just like a regular stepper unit. It's at position ball 1, player 1. So when it moves to here, that's player 2, ball 1, player 3, ball 1, player 4, ball 1. And then it goes to the next position is player 1, ball 2, player 2, player 3, player 4, player 3, ball 3, player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, ball 4, player 1, and it goes around and it does, you can have it set to where you get 5 balls per player. So what typically happens when you start it is you're about halfway through the game or the game is over. So this would be down here somewhere. And then whenever you hit start, this starts moving. You'll hear it go click, 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 click. And I think we were hearing this pull in, but you see when it pulls in, it doesn't move it. And this, as it steps through, it closes different switches. Those switches closing are what turn on the score reset relays that make all the scores reset and all of that. But since this thing's stuck, it just stays in the original position. That's why whenever the ball goes out at the end of the first ball, it never goes to ball 2. What this you heard how the you heard underneath the kick out hole, you heard it go clack 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 clack, right? That was this pulling in, clack 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 clack. It's trying to move it from position 1, 2, 3, 4, up to ball 2, but it can't, right? Because it's all screwed up. I don't know if cleaning it's just simply going to get it to work right again, or if some of the stuff that controls it's also got problems. But we already did work through the mech board underneath, so it may just be as simple as cleaning it. And it could be that some of these switches here are all jacked up. So let me drop it and let's look at the back of it and see if anything's broke. All right. So you can get a little better look at the cams and the switch stacks. You can see just how many there are. And you can see what the problem ultimately is. When this pulls in back here, this lever on the bottom is going to move, right? And then it is pulled back up by this long extension spring here. But if you look, there's a little lever there. This lever. That is staying in place. It has a spring on the back here that should pull that that way. So if it were to pull over on the other side of that, it would push underneath one of these little teeth on the gear there. And then when the coil released, this spring here, when it pulled this arm back up, would allow that little thing to push the gear up. But here's the problem. I can't even freehand the thing. I can't even like push this with my hand. So what's going on is someone has probably sprayed WD-40 all over this thing. So this piece is seized. We need to loosen it up. This one may well be. And the entire cam assembly is stuck. So, they probably sprayed something on it. But the deal with WD-40 is it's real convenient. It's in a little can. Psst, psst. Stick it right down there. Psst, psst, right? Oh, it's such a great product. It's a good cleaner. And it's a good lubricant for something that's like exposed or something. But something like this, gears, it's a horrible lubricant. Because what it does is, after it dries up, year passes, 2 years passes, 50 years passes. This thing's from 1976, so that's, you do the math, 47 years. It dries up, and then the stuff is like glue instead of oil. So it just jams crap up. So this is jammed up pretty bad. I've never had to take one of these completely apart, but we might have to take that cam out of there to get it freed up. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're not going to worry about the gear, the pawl there that's stuck. I'm going to take this off the front and see if we can get anything to happen from the front side. And plus, I don't want to break this thing, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove it. Okay, so I have it moving now. Right, so the problem was, get it to go back down. The problem was this pawl, or whatever you call it, here. This is also jammed up really tight, so this was pushed over into the gear. And since this won't hardly pivot at all, this gear was not able to turn and slide past this. But the actual pivots of the cam apparently don't have anything on them. So here's what we need to do. And we need to oil here. We need to oil on the front. We need to oil here. We need to seriously oil here and get all this where it frees up and is moving properly. So that's going to be our main problem. So for that, I usually use 3-in-1 oil. So I'm going to start drenching this sucker and get everything moving freely so that it can snap through its positions like it's supposed to. All right, so I oiled it. This screw here, you can remove this piece with. I loosened this screw too. The thing was wound down tight. Makes me wonder if somebody was working on this and didn't really know what they were doing and just tightened that up. I don't know. But it's a little loose now, which is how you want it. So now everything moves freely. Did you see it popped up there? So that's moving a little bit. It should be able to move. Okay, now on the other one, watch how whenever I go down past the gear, it immediately pops over. That's how you want it. And so since it's doing that, it's able to push on the tooth of the gear and move it. So it's all good. So at the same time, of course, these cams have little bumps on them. And so when these little bumps get to a certain spot, they push up that stack of switches. So watch this end one here. Right. Okay, so I'm going to put that back up. Everything back there is fine. Oh, I cleaned all those switches with a little flat file. This is the best time. You can get to them really well. Okay, and they all look like they're adjusted properly. They're opening when they should open, and they're closing when they should close. So I'm going to put this back up so we can work on this disc here. All right, so I have cleaned off the rivets with just some sandpaper, clean them up a little bit, and then I put a little synthetic grease on it. Let me show you what I use. I feel like I'm in a fishbowl sometimes. The customers were walking by staring at me. Did you see that Twilight Zone episode where they do that? It was great. Okay, this is what we use. Synthetic grease. The main reason we like this is because it's dielectric. You want it dielectric, which means it insulates actually, because if you put grease that's conductive on here, it will connect the things together and start a fire. So you don't want that. So here is the big problem. You have to put this back on. Where does it go? Y'all paid attention, right? I mean, you didn't let me take that off before you noticed where I didn't move it though. Oh man, I did move it, didn't I? Oh no. So you run into this problem where you can't really mark it. There's no way to mark it and then put it back right. So you have to be able to figure it out. Entire games have been ruined by this because people couldn't figure out where to put the thing back on. And I understand why. I mean, it is kind of a thing. So I don't know if I can prove it with the schematics, but maybe we'll try. But let me show you how on this particular one you can tell where to put the thing. Now you saw where we were. We were lined up with this line right here. And when I say lined up, I mean if you mount this on here, this top rivet, or snowshoe as I call it, was on this line. Okay? But you need to know what position you were in, right? Because every time I hit this, this thing is moving around. How do you know where it's supposed to be? Well, I'll show you. Let me get back, I'll show you. Remember how I showed you that the last one fired one time? I said, look at that last switch. So check out this last switch. So it went down. So 1, 2, 3, so it's position 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. There appear to be 30 positions. See how it is closed right now? Okay, well, I'm going to do it one more time. So see how this first stack is also closed right now? And now the second stack's closed. And now the third stack's closed. And the fourth stack. And then it goes through it again and again. Well, that's telling you what is going on. So if you go around till this first stack pops up, the very first time, bam, right there. When that happened, that last one also closed, but the last one only closes in one place, right? That is ball 1, player 1. Remember what we were stuck on. Ball 1, player 1. So that's where we need to be, right? That's where it was whenever I took it off that machine. I mean, that off this thing. Remember, because it was stuck on there, it couldn't move. Ball 1, player 1 is whenever the top snowshoe is on that first long line there. Now, by the way, these top rivets, nothing ever touches. That's just where the wire's soldered to, or the rivet is, the rivet is connected to the wire. So that's ball 1, player 1. Player 2, player 3, player 4. Ball 2, player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4. Ball 3, player 1, 2, 3, 4. Ball 4, player 1, 2, 3, 4. Ball 5, player 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it ends. Because that's what's up. Right? This position is game over. All right, I don't know if it actually moves past one position at the end of the game, but so if you're playing a one-player game, it skips these 3. So it's player 1, ball 1, and then at the end of the ball it goes clack, 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 and it goes over to player 1, ball 2, and at the end of the ball it goes clack, 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 and it goes over to player 1, ball 3. If you're playing a 2-player game, it is actually intelligent enough that it'll go player 1, ball 1, and then at the end of the ball it will move to player 2, ball 1. And then at the end of player 2's ball 1, it'll go clack, clack to player 1's ball 1. It will skip 2. It is that intelligent that it can actually do that. So all of that to say, if you get lost and you don't know where you are, if you watch all of these go up in order, that's because you're in the middle of the ball count sequence. At the end of the ball count sequence is where the game sits while the game is over. So whenever it turns on, it starts resetting at this point. So just having that twisted around, it'll be down here somewhere. It's making stuff reset. So it could be these 4 positions here. Maybe one resets the ball count unit. One resets the, well, there is no ball count unit, the coin unit or something. One resets the bonus unit or whatever. It's something like that. These positions are used to reset this thing. But eventually it gets back, so you'll have several positions where it goes through and nothing happens. But eventually this first row will pop back up. That's ball 1, player 1. I was incorrect about something. This does actually touch the outside rivets, some of them. It's the bottom piece, so this top piece is doing the ball count or whatever. But this bottom one, once you get here, it is riding on that outside rivet. That's pretty interesting. So actually that spot where we were talking about with the long lines there is actually one of the positions where those two are connecting. But can we prove it? Obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about. Can we prove that that's where the thing's supposed to start with the schematics? Let's see. All right, so this is how Gottlieb has drawn the schematic. It says circuit is shown with machine reset. Okay, so this is schematic that we're about to look at. Circuit is shown with the machine reset, ready for the first player to shoot the first ball, and the line cord is unplugged. Okay. Now the reason they're saying line cord unplugged is because they don't want any of the relays energized, so you can use the thing to tell if the relay is supposed to be energized or if it's something that locks on or etc. Right? But basically they're saying ball one, player one. So however this is drawn is how it should be at ball one, player one. All right, so a good way to figure this out is on any time you have something like this is to look at the light bulbs. So the number one ball and play light stays lit, according to the schematics, when the player unit is at what they call position 0, 1, 2, and 3, which makes sense. That's player 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it moves up, and now the ball 2 light is lit. So this light, this wire that is on the first 4 positions should be blue, and then it should move off that and go onto a brown wire. And then the wire that connects to that blue when the player unit is in position 0 is a yellow wire. So this is hard to see, and you typically don't have to do this, but I'm just trying to illustrate it. Here is a blue wire right there. That's actually the one we lined it up with, right? But really, that bottom pin there is the one that does the light. But if you look at this blue wire, we're going to zoom in so you can see it. This blue wire is connected right there. It's kind of hard to see because it's kind of dark, but it then connects to a green wire that is a little jumper. And that green wire, see it down there at the bottom? Connects to the left side of a string of 4 rivets. And then over here there is another jumper that connects to the next 4 rivets. Okay, so that is a blue wire that this pin is touching by being on that rivet. And then that is connected with this wire to this, which is basically ground, but the body of the screw, the body of the unit. Okay, so the metal connects through. All of this is connected to that wire, and it has a yellow wire attached to the frame. So that's a blue wire connected to a yellow wire because we're in the first ball, first light. I mean, first player, first ball. So yeah, that's it. So if you're trying to figure out where the thing should go on the player unit, that's where you want to be. Oh, and here's a good look at that back switch being open. Let's see if we can find that on the schematics. All right, so here is that switch. That is P5B, and it's parallel to the a switch on the S relay, which is the start relay. The P stands for player unit. So player unit, switch stack 5, switch B. So it's parallel to the start relay. So when the start relay drops out after starting the game and starts all of the reset stuff into motion, that switch being closed at any position but the first position is involved with everything resetting and adding the player unit until it gets back around to the position that it needs to be in. So here again, we're at ball 1, player 1 is how they say this is drawn, and that switch is open. And as you saw, the only place that switch can be open is at ball 1, player 1. So on that same stack, there is another switch just below it. So there's 2 switches on that stack. So this one is closed when you're at ball 1, player 1. Now keep in mind we were stuck there, so this was stuck closed. Okay, So what this one is used for is so that whenever it finally gets around to that position, if the score motor is turning, whoop, I ran out of room. Hold on a minute. It resets the AX relay and the BX relay. Those are the reset relays. Those are locking relays. So basically, as soon as the score motor gets around to that point where it closes that 2C or whatever, it's resetting AX and BX. AX is the reset control relay. The AX relay, whenever it pulls in, should pull down here, close this switch, which then allows Z1 and Z2 to pull in. Those are the two score reset relays. So the reason the scores are never resetting is because this AX relay, when it trips, it immediately gets reset because we're stuck in position 1. I've mentioned that before. I've had games before where if you're like just testing these Gottliebs and you've got it in the first position, sometimes whenever you turn the game back on, if it's not set up properly or you've still got something a little wrong, it won't reset the score reels. It'll just start the game. So I always move it to like position 2 or 3 or something like that. But yeah, so that's our problem. So basically, because we're stuck at the first position, it doesn't reset the scores. And the reason for things like that is because it wants you to be able to start a 2-player game, a 3-player game, a 4-player game. So if the ball goes out into the shooter lane, you can still press the start button and start a 2-player game, right? So I don't know if that's directly involved. I'm pretty sure that's directly involved. But that they also have a runway switch out there that has to do with that. But anyway, you get the whole point. Because the thing's stuck, it can't go through its reset sequence properly. So now that we've got it unstuck, I'm going to advance it a couple positions, and then we're going to start the game and see if it will reset all of the score relays, the score reels. All right, so I advanced it a couple positions. Let's turn it on. All right, it comes up and it says game over, and it's tilted. Remember, we were in a game whenever we turned it off. So I believe we're about to see it reset these score reels for the first time in probably a long time. Come on, people. That ain't how you... Maybe if I fonz it. Okay, so the thing's trying to make me look bad by not resetting the player unit. Come on, people. Come on now. So these are the schematics. I have a paper copy of the schematics too. If you need a copy of the schematics, Gottlieb protects their copyright on that stuff. There was a set of schematics that came with the machine whenever it came out. Okay, folks, we're going to look through the schematics a little bit. I have a paper copy of the schematics that came with the machine. If you need a copy of the schematics for a Gottlieb game, or for any game for that matter, go to pinballresource.com. They don't let these float around the internet because Gottlieb still protects their intellectual property, which includes the schematics. And that's how they are able to make a profit, make reproduction parts, things like that. So it's a good thing. And it's much better to have the big paper copy. It's just much better. If you can't get a copy anyway, but if you have a digital copy, you can't really take a computer with you to the pinball machine where you get down inside of it. But we're going to look over and I'm going to show you how the start sequence works and why it's doing what it's doing. The thing is trying to make me look bad by not resetting the replay unit like I swore it was going to. So here is the replay button. When you press the replay button, you are connecting power from over here all the way over here, right? Now, there are all these switches in the way to allow this to happen. Notice one of them is the AX relay. That will become important here in a second. And the switch on motor 1C is normally closed whenever it's just sitting there. And the switch on motor 2B is normally closed whenever it's just sitting there. And the anti-cheat switch hasn't been tripped, which is kind of like the tilt switch. And so I press the replay button, start. So that connects power through my finger. And the W relay hasn't dropped. I don't know which one that is. And it connects power over here. The replay unit anti-cheat switch has not tripped. So they haven't been messing with the replay unit. Some people came in. And the 0 position replay unit switch, if it's closed, because you have credits on the machine, so you're not at 0 credits, then it connects power all the way through here, through a switch on the 3rd position coin unit, whatever that is, and it, bam, turns on this V relay. That is the replay button relay, what people commonly refer to as the start button. Okay, so once that pulls in, it closes a switch on itself, which then also sends the power, bam, over to the S relay. And the S relay is the start relay. The start relay starts everything. I probably didn't even have to say that. You probably knew exactly. Okay, so once the S relay pulls in, it holds itself on with the switch on itself. Until that switch opens at motor 2B. So it's only going to be on for just a little while. This is the timing chart for the motor, the score motor. You can see motor 2B, so it's normally closed. It's going to hold itself on, bam, and then open right before it gets to its next home position. So the score motor has 3 home positions. Each one's at 120 degrees, right? So it's going to turn, bam, and then open right before it gets to the home position. So the start relay will only hold itself on for basically 1 revolution, which is actually 1/3 of a complete revolution, but 1 trip from home to home position on the score motor. Here is the score motor, and the way it gets power is if any of these switches come on, the score motor starts turning. And sure enough, the start relay will start the score motor turning. But remember, the score motor is going to turn around to home position, and then by that time the start relay will be turned off, and then the score motor would stop. But ours isn't stopping, it just keeps running. Why is that? It's because the start relay must be turning on some other relay. So this switch on the start relay, as the motor is turning, remember the start relay has started the motor, as the motor is turning, this switch on the start relay being connected will provide power to the total play meter. It will increment that, and it will also subtract from the replay unit. At the same time, this U relay is the first ball relay. It's up here. Remember, this is drawn with the ball in the out lane at the first ball, but we're before that. We're at the reset section, the startup section. So this is actually connected up here. That start switch pulling it, the start relay pulling in, will connect power through here and turn on the AX relay. The AX relay is what makes the dream work. Right? So it could be that we have a problem on this switch here. The way we would know that is if, well, it could be that it's tripping, that the U relay is up here where it should be, but it's just not making good connection. So the way we could tell is we could open it up and start it again and see if the AX relay looks like it trips. That's the next section of the start sequence. Okay, so this next part is incredibly complex, but it makes a lot of sense once you look at it. So when the AX relay trips by the start relay, this will connect down to here. And then it will provide power from over here to here. If the player unit is at position 20 or 21, ours is not. Remember, ours is at like position 2 or something like that right now. And it was stuck at position 1, but we fixed that. Once the player unit is at position 20, it will turn on the Z1 relay, which resets 2 of the sets of scores. Once it gets to position 21, it will pull in the Z2 player score reset relay, which will reset the other two sets of scores, okay? And then there's other ways that the power goes as well, mainly down here. Okay, so remember we hit, the start relay has pulled in and the score motor has started to turn. As soon as the AX relay drops, power will connect through this start relay it's easy to get lost on this one. Over here, and as motor 1A pulses, I think that one hits like 5 times or something like that as it turns around. As the switch on motor 1A closes, power will connect up here. Now it will, see this little dot, it will connect back through here. And the Z1 relay has not been pulled in yet because we're not at position 20 on the player unit. So that's still closed. So power will connect through there, up to here. And then the Z2 relay is also not pulled in yet, the score reset relay, because we're not at position 21. And power will connect through there and add a position on the player unit. So it will move it from, right now we're at position 2 to position 3 or something like that, right? And motor 1A will keep kicking. So it'll open and then connect again. And when it does, it will add another position to the player unit. And then it will open and connect again, and it will add another position to the player unit. So while this is going on, eventually the start relay goes off, remember? So the start relay is going to fall out, so that won't be connected anymore. But remember, this is that switch we looked at that is connected anytime you're not at position 1 or whatever. Right? So when you're at ball 1, player 1, it's open, because that's how this is drawn, remember? And so that's open. But as soon as you're on ball 2, player 1, or I mean ball 1, player 2, which is the next position on the player unit, this switch is now closed and will remain closed until you get all the way back to ball 1. That's how they are able to stop it at player 1, ball 1. It's really just a really clever design. They kept adding switches until it did everything they needed it to do. So that's how they know whenever you get back to the original position, right? So the start relay drops out and this holds in and it keeps on going, it keeps on going. And you know what it does? It steps this up until you get to position 20. When you get to position 20, it pulls in the Z1 relay, which holds itself on through a resistor, as long as the AX relay is still tripped, okay? So now the Z1 relay is pulled in. So the power is connecting down through here, all the way to the end. And then, oh, it can't connect through there because the Z1 relay pulled in and it opened that switch. So it can't step the player unit up anymore. It's broken right there, right? So the Z1 relay starts making all of the scores reset. So when the second player scores, when they're reset switches, which is the, there's a switch that closes whenever it gets back to home position, right? When those score reels are turning because the Z1 relay is pulsing them, well, eventually they get to the point where it can't pulse anymore because it's at 0. And when it does, it closes this switch. Well, once they all get back to 0, power connects all the way through there. And then once the first player score reels all get back to 0, power connects through there. It connects through the normally closed switch on Z2 that hasn't tripped and steps the player unit up. So the player unit then goes to position 21, which turns on the Z2 relay, right? And opens this switch. So the game can no longer step the player unit up. So since the Z2 relay is on, it starts resetting the third player score reels. And whenever they get back to 0, it connects power through them. And at the same time, the same things happen with the fourth player score reels. And when they all get back to 0, power is connected through them. And it steps the player unit up again to position 22. And then again to position 23, as this is turning. and then again to position 24, and then again to position 25, or however many we figured there were, right? And eventually it gets to the point where it opens this switch at ball 1, player 1. And whenever it does that, it stops stepping up, and bam, there you go. So that's what we're wanting it to do. So where is our problem? It could be right here on this AX relay, or it could be that one we were looking at earlier, I think it was the U relay. These are make and break switches. Sometimes those are hard to get adjusted right. So I'll bet I've got one of them not adjusted quite right. So I'm going to turn it on and see if the AX relay trips. All right, so we're turned off. Whenever I turn it on, the U relay has pulled in, and the game over relay has pulled in, but the reset control relay has not pulled in. And of course the score motor is just running and running and running. Okay, so the reason the score motor is turning is because this AX relay is in fact pulled in. So it's trying to start the game, but it's not working. Now that switch that that is critical to make all of that work is this one right here. Let me see if I can tap it and we'll see if it's connected. So this center blade should be connected to this smaller blade. And it's close, but I don't know. Oh man, I went too far. It was almost there. I think it's barely touching, but it's probably so close that power can't run, or so barely that power can't run through it. But that switch needs to be connected for the rest of the sequence to go on. So everything we were looking at up to this point, it drops, but power may not be running through that. So I'm going to adjust that a little bit tighter, clean it a little bit, and then turn it back on, and it may, as soon as I turn it on, start resetting everything. All right, yeah, so I adjusted a little tighter. I think that may be it. So if we turn it on, it might complete its setup. Now, on a lot of games, if you stop it in the middle of a game, whenever you turn it back on, it will go into game over. I looked at this one, and we've kind of got it stuck in between modes, because since the AX relay is down, it's trying to reset things. But it can't because that switch isn't touching. That's my theory, at least. So that's why it's halfway doing it whenever you turn it back on. So let's turn it on and see if it completes. Well, that's not it. So the power appears to be, this is the switch we were just messing with. The power appears to be through here. And it isn't using this yet because we're not at position 20 or 21. We've got to get that player unit to start stepping or it won't do that. So, like we were just looking at, it could be this switch on the start relay. That would be the next thing to look at, I guess. Or it could be this switch on PB5, which I already looked at and it was fine. So since there's two there, I'm going to skip that one for now. Which means the next, if you remember when it followed, the power went down, the next thing it came to was this Z1. Remember, this can't open and these can't reset back to 0 until this pulls in at position 20 on the player unit. So if that switch were screwed up, power would never get through and do its thing. It could also be that that one is fine, but this one's messed up. So it could be a switch on either Z1 or Z2. All right, so Z1 and Z2 I haven't cleaned yet. Normally I go through and I clean everything first, but lately I've been trying to do it a little different. So just to make interesting videos, because it allows me to solve more problems, right? But it also causes me more problems. It's a kind of a catch-22, folks. So this black, white, and red wire, they're telling me this is, connects to this orange and white wire. That is that first switch on the Z1 relay. And you can see it on the top there. It is closed until this relay pulls in, and then it will open. But it's not making good contact because this blade has slipped out of the actuator where it's supposed to go and has got it all jacked up. So you see the point? This has slipped out of there, which is holding this the tension of this blade is holding the actuator down, which means that it's not connecting well over there. So that's our problem. So there was just a broken powertrain. Every one of those switches has to be just right. It has to be clean, or the thing won't work. And we're on position 5. Player 1, ball 2, it looks like. So that's how it's supposed to be. And that top switch up there on the other side opens when it comes in and closes when it goes back up. So that will stay closed until we stick the player unit up to position 20, and then the Z1 will pull in, this one, and open it. So power cannot get through until these reset back to 0. All right, so the Z2 one is also all jacked up. It's the other way around, though. Whoever, somebody's definitely been screwing around with this. So this plate that pulls in isn't seated right. Basically, look at all that. So that's kind of popped apart. So, you know, I always tell people, go through and clean all the switches first. This is why you find stuff like this. All right, so I got those adjusted. We're going to try it again. Now, even if it does work, though, you know, we found so many relays that have been out of adjustment where somebody's been messing with it. Unless all 8 of those score reels, the switch connects and will conduct power after they get back to 0, we're not going to get the next step, you know, but we'll try it and see. They're killing me here. They're killing me here. Yeah, let's try to... Let's make sure it's our switch is fine. It's this top one. Don't worry, people. I'm not going to get electrocuted. Don't worry about it. Well, it ain't that. There's something else still. Good Lord, man. This thing don't want to be fixed. I'm the only person in 45 years that has tried to fix this damn thing, and it don't want to help me. How ungrateful can you get? There's only so many it can be, people. I'm not going to get shocked. Don't worry about it. There we go. All right, that one still needs a little work. Maybe better, maybe. There we go. It's trying. Yeah, see, it reset the first 2 score reels, 2 sets, but now all of those have to conduct power through a switch on each one of them to get past that Z1 relay that's open. So, yeah. All right, so here's one of the score reels. When it's trying to reset, it's pulling in this plunger, which is moving the drum here. And eventually, if you look at that inside switch there, when you get back to 0, so that's 9 there. When you get to 0, that switch goes down and makes contact. So once it's at 0, that switch is connected on this one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. And that line going through all of them is in parallel to that Z1 switch. So since Z1 is pulled in, because you're at position 20, that's opened. And so it will only go to position 21 once all 8 of those are connected. So our problem is they're dirty. We haven't cleaned them yet. So they got back to 0 because that kept pulling in until they did. But there wasn't any power running through that line. There's an open switch somewhere or a dirty switch somewhere. Okay, so I cleaned the top 8. They had a bunch of dirt and stuff on them too, like cobwebs and stuff. Remember, this is the one that had all the rat damage, so this thing has seen better days. But I cleaned those 8, and then I set one of them back to 1 so that it would have to reset it before it all worked. What it should do is, once it resets all those, if I've got it right, The power should run through every one of those closed switches and then step the player unit up one position. Once it does that, it will turn on Z2, which breaks the power again until all of these reset. Okay, once they all reset, I haven't cleaned those, but theoretically, power should pass through all of those and step the player unit up a couple more positions. So, let's see. And remember, the reason it's working when we turn it on is because we're just stuck halfway through the reset sequence. Oh, it made it. Oh, it made it. It's trying so hard. It's the little engine that could. Is it going to get it? These score reels need some serious work, people. We're going to have to help it. Right? So that didn't work. We got to get this one back to 0. It's not working. So why would that be? There's a switch on the up here that I haven't cleaned. That is what Z2 being pulled in provides power to each reel to. So there's a switch on it that's closed when it's not on 0. And then once it gets back to 0, that switch opens so that it doesn't turn it past 0, right? But at the same time, it closes that other switch that we're talking about. So we'll get it to 0, and then we'll see if anything happens. Nothing. So our next problem is none of these switches are clean enough to pass it through. Now I could cheat. Should we cheat? I'm going to cheat and connect our switch back, which will route power past it and should get that turning. Let's cheat, folks. I ain't got all day. This video was supposed to be 30 minutes. It got so interesting though. Here we go. All right. So we got back to game over. Oh, look. I don't have that one all the way to 0. Maybe that's the problem. Without it being all the way to 0, that switch won't close. Okay, so it is stepped around, and again it is at position 21. All right, ball and play 1, player 1. It reset the drop targets, and it kicked the ball out. So it's limping. Is it scoring? A little bit. We got some jangly chimes here. Player 1. Ball and play 1 again. Player 1, ball and play 1 again. Clearly, we still have plenty of work to do, but I think we're getting it a little closer. So at least now we understand how the player unit works and how the startup sequence works. So I hope that's helpful to you. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments down below. I'm going to start another video. So I'll see you in a couple days when the next installment comes out, and hopefully we can get this problem fixed. But give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. And don't forget to check out my brother Donnie. My brother has a channel here on YouTube. We work on pinball machines, arcade games, and jukeboxes. My brother Donnie works on old buildings, old cars, things like that. And he has a farm with cows and goats. So go check it out. I'm over there with him a lot. But I'll see you back in 2 days where we'll take the next steps on this beautiful December of '75 Gottlieb Spirit of '76 pinball machine.